This is a real, documented, true-life story of Eric Garner. You are watching this video right now. You can pause it, you can skip it, you can close it entirely and go watch something else. Eric Garner could not do any of those things on July 17, 2014. And the reason he ended up in the situation he did will make you uncomfortable because it started with a cigarette. Not a weapon, not a robbery, not a threat to public safety. A single, loose cigarette. Let us start at the beginning. Eric Garner was born on September 15, 1970, in New York City. He grew up to be 6 feet 3 inches tall and weighed around 350 pounds. A large man by any standard, which becomes tragically relevant later. He worked as a mechanic for a period, then spent years working for New York City's horticulture department, planting and maintaining trees and plants across the city. Yes, the man the entire world would come to know from a police confrontation spent his working years literally making the city greener. He eventually had to leave that job because of deteriorating health. He had asthma, sleep apnea, and complications from diabetes. His body was already working against him every single day before July 2014 ever arrived. He had been with his wife Essa for over 20 years. They had 6 children together, ranging in age from 18 years old down to 3 months old. In the neighborhood of Tompkinsville on the north shore of Staten Island, where he spent most of his days, people knew Eric Garner as Big E neighbors, community members, the barber who cut his hair. They all described him the same way: a gentle giant, a neighborhood peacemaker, a big man with a calm, joking personality who was known for breaking up fights rather than starting them. That is a documented description repeated consistently across multiple accounts, not a characterization added later to make you feel something. That was simply who the man was. Now, he also had a long history of low-level arrests, over 30 of them across his lifetime, primarily for selling individual untaxed cigarettes called loosies, marijuana possession, and driving without a license. He was not an unknown face to local officers. In fact, in 2007, 7 years before his death, Garner had filed a federal harassment complaint against the NYPD, documenting what he described as repeated and targeted stops by officers. That complaint is on record. So by 2014, the relationship between Eric Garner and the local precinct had a long, documented, and clearly unpleasant history on both sides. The area around Tompkinsville Park, where Garner regularly spent time, was a high-activity area for the 120th precinct. In 2014 alone, that area had already logged 98 arrests, 100 criminal court summonses, 646 calls to 911, and 9 complaints to 311. It was the kind of block where police presence was constant, and the relationship between residents and officers was, to use a polite word, strained. Tompkinsville had heroin being sold in the park across the street, but the enforcement priority that afternoon was cigarettes. Untaxed cigarettes specifically, because New York's broken windows policing philosophy, introduced in the early 1990s, operated on the theory that cracking down hard on petty violations prevents larger crimes. What it also did, in practice, was make sellers of loose cigarettes a priority target for arrest in a neighborhood where far more serious activity was happening 40 feet away. On the afternoon of July 17, 2014, at approximately 3:30 p.m., Lieutenant Christopher Bannon of the 120th Precinct drove past a group of men congregating outside a beauty supply store at 202 Bay Street and ordered plainclothes officers to go investigate. Eric Garner was among the group. According to bystanders present, including his friend Ramsey Orta, Garner had just finished breaking up a fight nearby when the officers arrived. Not starting one, breaking one up. He was, in the most literal sense, doing the thing a neighborhood peacemaker does. Plainclothes officer Justin D'Amico approached Garner and accused him of selling loosies. Garner told him he had not been selling anything. What he said next is documented on video, captured by Ramsey Orta on his cell phone. Garner told the officers, and this is a documented direct quote from the footage, that every time they saw him, they wanted to harass him, that he was tired of it, that it stops today. He was not threatening anyone. He was not reaching for anything. He was a sick, exhausted, large man who had 30 years of low-level arrests behind him and had simply reached the end of his patience for being a recurring target. Then Officer Daniel Pantlio, 29 years old, stepped in from behind Garner and put his arm around Garner's neck. What happened next is not disputed. It is on video. Pantlio wrapped his forearm around Garner's neck and pulled him backward. The two of them slammed into the glass window of the beauty supply store, which did not break. Garner went to his knees. Multiple officers officers closed in. Pantaleo then used his hands to push Garner's face into the sidewalk while pinning him down. 3 uniformed officers and 2 plainclothes officers surrounded him on the ground. Here is what is critical. The NYPD officially banned the chokehold as a tactic in 1993, 21 years before this moment. It was prohibited departmental policy. The NYPD's own training official would later testify that what Pantaleo applied met the definition of a chokehold. The police union would argue he had used a seatbelt maneuver. The departmental administrative judge, reviewing the evidence in 2019, found Pantaleo's version of events to be, and this is the documented language, self-serving and untruthful. But that ruling was still 5 years away. On that sidewalk on that afternoon, the prohibited hold had been applied, and the result was immediate. Garner said he could not breathe. He said it 11 times. That is not an approximation. It is a count, verified by video footage that Ramsey Orta captured and that every major news outlet would broadcast within hours. Garner lost consciousness on the sidewalk. He went into cardiac arrest. Emergency medical personnel arrived. According to documented accounts and footage, no CPR was administered on the scene. Eric Garner was taken to Richmond University Medical Center and pronounced dead approximately 1 hour after the encounter began. He was 43 years old. His youngest child was 3 months old. Earlier that same afternoon, he had been in his barber Daniel Ewing's chair getting his regular cut and shave. He had fallen asleep in the chair the way he always did because of his sleep apnea. The barber had laughed about it, as he always did. About 10 minutes after Garner left the shop, Ewing found out what had happened just steps away. On August 1, 2014, the New York City Medical Examiner officially ruled Eric Garner's death a homicide. The cause was listed as compression of the neck and chest combined with his pre-existing conditions, asthma, obesity, and heart disease. The Garner family hired Michael Baden, a former New York City medical examiner, to conduct an independent autopsy. Baden agreed with the city's findings and noted hemorrhaging around Garner's neck consistent with neck compression. The police union insisted it was a seatbelt move. The city's own autopsy said homicide. 2 separate medical examiners. One conclusion. A grand jury was convened on August 19. It sat for 9 weeks. It heard testimony from 50 witnesses. It reviewed 60 pieces of evidence, including 4 videos of the incident. It had the medical examiner's homicide ruling in front of it. On December 3, 2014, the Staten Island grand jury returned no indictment. Not a reduced charge. Not a misdemeanor. Nothing. Zero. The city of New York issued a statement saying it was deeply saddened. The police union gave Pantaleo their full and unqualified support. The Department of Justice announced it would conduct its own civil rights investigation. In the meantime, Pantaleo went home. The response across the country was not quiet. On December 4 and 5, more than 300 protesters were arrested in New York City alone, most for disorderly conduct. Thousands marched in Boston, Chicago, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Minneapolis, and Atlanta. On December 10, 76 protesters were arrested at a shopping center in West London, England, because apparently the story had traveled across an ocean. NBA players including LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, and Derrick Rose wore shirts bearing Garner's last words during warm-ups. President Obama publicly endorsed those demonstrations. The phrase that had come from a dying man's lips on a Staten Island sidewalk had become a global rallying cry, and the officer who put his arm around that man's neck was at home on desk duty, collecting his salary. Now here is where the story develops a layer of dark irony, so heavy it should require its own structural support. Ramsey Orta, the man who filmed the incident, the 22-year-old whose cell phone footage ensured the entire world could see exactly what had happened, was arrested on weapons charges on August 2, 2014. 1 day after Garner's death was officially ruled a homicide. Orta maintained the charges were retaliatory. He said that from the night Garner died, at 4 a.m., there was a police spotlight shining through his window with a patrol car parked outside. He said he was stopped multiple times for robberies he had no involvement in. In February 2015, he, his mother, his brother, and his girlfriend were arrested in an early morning home raid on multiple drug charges. His elderly mother was taken into custody. In June 2015, he was accused of selling drugs to an undercover officer. A lab test later showed the alleged substance was fake, and those charges were reduced. Orta was arrested at least 8 times in less than 2 years after filming the footage. He told Time magazine he sometimes regretted pulling out his phone. He said it had put him in a messed up predicament. He said he would have released the video anonymously if he could do it again. His mother described being in therapy for what she called post-traumatic stress disorder after the home raid. Orta filed a lawsuit in 2015 alleging that while incarcerated at Rikers Island, rat poison had been placed in his food. He and 19 other inmates filed that claim. In 2016, Orta accepted a plea deal, partly because prosecutors agreed to drop charges against his mother, and was sentenced to 4 years in prison on weapons and drug charges. He was released in May 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. The only person connected to Eric Garner's death who went to prison was the man who filmed it. Meanwhile, Pantaleo sat on desk duty, on full salary, for 5 years. The NYPD's Internal Affairs Bureau had concluded internally in January 2015 that a chokehold had been used and recommended charges, but that finding was not made public while the department waited on the federal investigation. Federal civil rights prosecutors reportedly recommended charging Pantaleo in April 2018. Attorney General William Barr's Justice Department did not approve the filing. On July 16, 2019, 5 years to the exact day after Garner's death, federal prosecutors announced there would be no federal civil rights charges against Daniel Pantaleo. A departmental disciplinary trial finally concluded in June 2019. The administrative judge found Pantaleo had used a chokehold, found his testimony self-serving and untruthful, and recommended termination. On August 19, 2019, NYPD Commissioner James O'Neill announced Pantaleo was fired, effective immediately, and would not receive his pension. The police union accused O'Neill of choosing politics over officers. Protesters who had been following Mayor Bill de Blasio, then running for president, to debates across the country and screaming for Pantaleo to be fired finally got the firing, 5 years and 1 month after Garner died. De Blasio said justice had been done. Garner's mother, Gwen Carr, a retired subway train operator who had spent 5 years marching, testifying before Congress, and writing a book she titled This Stops Today, using her son's documented last words, said that while Pantaleo may have lost a job, she had lost her son, and you cannot replace that. Then in June 2020, 6 years after Garner's death, George Floyd died in Minneapolis under a police officer's knee while repeating the same words Garner had said on that Staten Island sidewalk. The footage went global within hours. Protests erupted in all 50 states and dozens of countries, and the bill that New York Assemblyman Walter Mosley had first proposed in 2015, a bill to make the use of a chokehold a criminal offense rather than merely an internal departmental violation, which had sat dormant in the legislature for 5 years, was suddenly fast-tracked. On June 8, 2020, the New York State Assembly passed the Eric Garner Anti-Chokehold Act by a vote of 140 to 3. On June 11, 2020, Governor Andrew Cuomo signed it into law. Under the act, the use of a chokehold by law enforcement is a Class C felony punishable by up to 15 years in prison. The NYPD had banned the chokehold in 1993. It took the deaths of 2 men, 26 years apart, for that ban to become actual law with actual criminal consequences. Erica Garner, Eric's eldest daughter, who was 24 years old when her father died, spent the years between 2014 and 2017 leading twice-weekly demonstrations at the site where her father collapsed, lying down on the pavement each time in protest, building a foundation in his name, releasing a song that included audio from her father's final confrontation, campaigning relentlessly to have the sealed grand jury transcripts made public. She had a son in August 2017, whom she named Eric after her father. On December 23, 2017, at 27 years old, Erica Garner suffered a cardiac arrest. She sustained major brain damage. She died on December 30, 2017. Her infant son was 4 months old. In 2022, the section of Bay Street in Staten Island where Eric Garner died was officially renamed Eric Garner Way. A green street sign with white lettering now marks the spot where he was taken to the ground. His mother, Gwen Carr, was there for the unveiling. She looked up at the sign. No criminal trial for Eric Garner's death has ever taken place. So here is the question, and I want you to answer it specifically in the comments, not generally. The chokehold that ended Eric Garner's life had been banned by the NYPD since 1993. The death was filmed from before the moment of confrontation. Two independent medical examiners ruled it a homicide. The departmental judge found the officer's testimony untruthful. The grand jury returned no indictment. The federal government declined to prosecute. The officer collected a salary for 5 years. The man who filmed it went to prison. The daughter, who spent 3 years fighting for accountability, died at 27. It took another man dying the same way, 6 years later, to get the chokehold made into an actual law. And the street where it happened now bears Eric Garner's name, which is either a tribute or the most affordable form of accountability ever invented, depending on how you look at it. Tell me in the comments, what does accountability actually mean in this country? Who does it apply to? And do you genuinely believe it applies equally? Subscribe and answer below. This conversation is long overdue.